Good evening. My name is Angela Davis, Assistant Superintendent of Educational Services. Thank you for joining us tonight for our Special Education Town Hall meeting. The purpose of this meeting is to present an overview of our plans to meet the needs of every student as we begin school using virtual instruction. We will speak to the daily schedule and types of instruction across grade levels, the services to be provided, testing, and parent-guardian meetings. We ask that you please use the comment box to enter any questions specific to the items presented. Those questions will be addressed at the end of our presentation. If you have a personal situation or issue to discuss, please do not use the comment box. This is not the proper forum for such discussions. Instead, please contact the Special Services Office to discuss such matters. I know the time is 6:30 to 7:30. We will have to end 5 minutes earlier because there is another parent town hall meeting for another school, so we need to prepare for that. At this time, I will introduce Ms. Shelly Ann Miranda, who will share with you the daily schedules and types of instruction for students from pre-K through 12. Thank you. Ms. Miranda?
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Shelly Ann Miranda. I am the Assistant Director of Special Education, and today, in preparation for reopening our schools virtually and supporting the unique and individual needs of all of our students, staff, parents, and community, we are going to share an overview of what the instructional component and then later what the related services will look like once we go remote on September 1st. So with that said, I am going to share my screen so that you can see as I go through each of the items. At the department level, you just met Ms. Angela Davis. Today, Ms. Erica Cervelli Levine is not able to join us. She has an emergency situation, and so today we are going to share just what the department plans to do in moving our students forward. We have Mr. Emilio Giannetti, who is our coordinator of IEP compliance and parent outreach. We also have Dr. Maura Tewitt, who oversees our child study team and coordination of those services. We also have a support of Mr. Danny Guerreri, who is our transition coordinator. And then to the right, we have a list of our support staff who really keep our department going. We have Ms. Candace Brown, Ms. Delia Pomales, Amanda Vera, and Ms. Barbara Kilgore, who's new to our department this year. So as we prepare to support our students and meet their individual needs, we are guided by a set of core questions. One being, what do we expect from teachers as we go remote? What would that look like? Will the instruction, what will the supports look like? How will we ensure that students and teachers are equipped with the resources needed to meet the unique needs of our students? Also, what professional development will we afford to teachers, child study team members, related service providers, paraprofessionals in order to meet those needs? I know this is a huge question as a parent myself. What will be the ratio of synchronous or live instruction relative to asynchronous or pre-recorded instruction? And how will that be afforded to our students at the different levels? Then most importantly, as liaison and support for students with IEPs, we want to ensure that our students are making progress. So how do we ensure that those IEP mandated services are being implemented and we can truly gauge how well our students are progressing to those goals? So today I want to go over some general guidelines for going remotely. I have to first say that collectively this work is not solely of one individual, one department, but we work closely with other departments, the building level administration, the teachers, the paraprofessionals, our parent CPAD group to garner how best to first identify the needs of our students as we go virtual, but most importantly, what are the resources and supports we'll need to truly meet the needs of our students and parents. In gathering that information, we've met with a number of stakeholders, that being our teachers, our parents through our CPAD groups. We've also met with our paraprofessional agencies to identify what do we need in order to support each group so that we build the bridge to in-person instruction as we decide to go virtual. With that said, we have planned for the very first 4 days of schools a number of professional development, supplementary resources that will be used in addition to our core curriculum, so that our teachers or CST members or related service providers and all of our students and parents are fully equipped as we go virtual. Before we get into what that looks like, I just wanted to give everyone a brief overview of the guidelines that the district has in place. And I know, having perimeters for our special education students is paramount. And so we wanted to share our expectations with our students and our families as we proceed. So some general guidelines that the district has in place to support parents and students as we move forward virtually is to, share that we know that much of this is new. And so navigating the online platform for some of our students might, give students reason to pause. But we want to be sure that we support our parents and students by giving them the resources and guidance they'll need to do well. So I know in terms of the delivery of instruction, much of that will be done live, in addition to virtual recorded videos that will be afforded on the teacher's classroom. We encourage parents to ensure that these videos are not recorded, and that any assignment and or lessons that are shared on or Google Classroom or any other platforms are reserved for the sole purpose of our students, and to ensure that if you do at any time, we understand that students might be out, that you reach out to the classroom teacher and or case manager in order to get any additional makeup lessons, resources that the child might need. In terms of expectations for our students, we are going to use several different platforms, but our main platform will be our Google Suite. Come September 1st, all of our teachers, paraprofessional, child study team members, administrators will be retooled on how to use these platforms and how to embed any resources that our teachers and or related service providers will be using in the Google platform or on any other platform that will be used across the district. There has been many questions about what our instructional model will look like come September. I know back in the spring, we explored a number of options in terms of recorded lessons or packets. I can reassure you that come September, our focus has been to ensure that our students, primarily our more fragile special education students, are given direct instruction by way of synchronous live instruction that is similar as best as possible to what it would look like in an in-person model. We do ask our students as they prepare to, venture out into our virtual world, that they're reminded that this is going to be similar to what would be expected in the classroom. So we ask students to just dress appropriately during the sessions, to find a quiet place in the home so that they can focus on the lesson or task at hand. And also that they participate. If possible, the camera should be turned on during the live instruction, but also there'll be opportunities for students to go into breakout rooms, and we want to ensure that our students are going to maximize on all of these opportunities that will be afforded with our new model. We encourage students to actively participate, ask questions. Oftentimes the space is new. If there's a question or a lesson or an activity that is not clear, we do ask our students to ask questions, and we'll have our teachers readily and available during those live sessions to gauge students' progress towards a task, but also to answer any questions that student might have relative to the lesson or task. We ask students to keep their password private so that the instruction and lesson is private only to students within that classroom. In a minute, we're going to go over just what that looks like in depth for students in preschool through 12, but also we have some recommendations for parents as well. We do ask, especially for younger parents, that you will be given some assistance, both from your classroom teachers and from your building administrators when you do have the town hall meeting, as to how to navigate the platforms. So for example, I know as a parent, navigating the Google platform from a parent perspective can be tricky. And so we encourage you to participate in those activities where parents and their children can really learn how to first log on to the interface, but also to navigate the different options that will be available as we go virtual. I know attendance was an area of concern for many parents, and in the spring, we deal with a variety of issues as to why students were not able to log on, whether it's health related, the absence of technology, or supports. We do ask that you keep the line of communication open, both with the classroom teacher, but also with the case manager. Use your resources. If we don't know that you are in need of help, it's going to be challenging for us to give you the help that you deserve. So please communicate on an ongoing basis with first the classroom teacher, but also the child study team member or guidance counselor, the building administration, so that you can be supported by the many different stakeholders that are here to help you and your students as we move forward.
Shirley, and I just want to interrupt for 1 minute, and I just want to welcome Mr. Reiner on the call, board member of TNEC Board of Education. Welcome, Mr. Reiner. Thank you. And again, all parents who are on the call.
Thank you, Ms. Davis, and welcome, Mr. Reiner. So we do understand that some of our students will need some supports in navigating the platform. We had a great conversation this morning with some of our special education teachers and talking about how to support parents, what resources will be made available to parents, and how we'll utilize our paraprofessionals to assist students as they log on and navigate the different lessons, but really to ensure that they can access the curriculum and resources to really maximize their progress as we, enter this new pathway of learning. So in terms of just what the expectations are for the resources, these are some recommendations. This information will also be shared with you at the building level. So I also wanted to ensure that all of our parents are informed of what is being expected as students log on. I'll take you back to what the instructional model will look like. So from preschool through our 18 through 21 program, we service a number of different students. At this point, we have over 900 students in district and close to 100 students in our out-of-district placement. So with that said, our supports, will vary based on programming. So for example, our students who are in our LLD setting initially, our hope was to be able to service those students in person because we recognize that those students are our most, we call them our most fragile group, with the understanding that they will need a lot more supports and, both from teachers, building administrators, constant communication with parents. However, given that the safety of our students is our #1 priority, we understand that we will need to shift gears and look at how we can problem solve to really support our students virtually. I'm really encouraged by the conversations we've had with our teachers, our child study team members, and our administrators. And I'm confident that we will be able to meet the needs of our students as we go virtual. We've invested in a number of resources over the summer, and the feedback that we got from our parents, both from a social, emotional component and instructional component, we're really encouraged that we will be able to meet those needs come September 1st. So here's what the day will look like. It will start off, students are expected to check in via Google Meet or Zoom based on the level. The teacher will go over the day's schedule and the agenda so students and parents can be fully informed of what to expect for that particular day. The teacher will share expectations for the overall classroom in terms of the lesson, but also participation and how to ensure that our students are safe in this virtual space. To ensure that the content, we service a number of students, from students with multiple disabilities to students who might have learning, auditory, fine motor, specific learning disabilities. So we want to ensure that our instruction is tailored to the unique needs of those learners. So what we've done, we've identified a number of resources and support systems that we'll have in place in our virtual classroom, whether it's breakout sessions, one-to-one instruction with those students, small group instructions that teachers will provide, to encourage students to first have full access to the instruction, but also to really gauge when students might not be making adequate progress and to be able to address those needs as quickly and effectively as possible within those platforms. Something that we've asked for teachers to do as we proceed is to ensure that there's an ongoing communication with the teacher from the previous school year. And what we hope to do is to really garner where our students are relative to where we were prior to March 13th. We want to ensure that the activities are first appropriate. And so in the very first few weeks of school, what you will see is your teachers really getting to know your students, getting a clear understanding of what their needs are so that as they move forward, they can address those needs on an individual basis. I know as a parent, the communication with my child's teacher is of paramount importance. And so what we have asked our teachers, and what most of our teachers continue to do, is to open the line of communication with their parents and families. First, to ensure that our parents are fully informed on how to navigate the platform, but also to be able to share when something needs to be addressed. I do ask you to also continue to communicate with the child study team members, and then also to us. If there's something that you think that we need to improve on, I want you to be able to email myself, Ms. Erica Cyril Levine, Ms. Davis, Dr. Tuith, Mr. Janetti, and we will gladly reach out and ensure that all of those needs are met. So in going deeper, I want to share with you just what the framework looks like for our students, at our different levels, starting with preschool. We understand that the New Jersey Department of Education has certain limits on the number of screen time that students are allowed to be exposed to, given the very fragile nature of that group. And so with that said, we've created a tailored program for our preschoolers, especially those with disability. We ask our teachers to first be ready and available for live synchronous instruction, but also to afford our parents and students opportunities for recorded lessons that students might be able to view in the light of not being present for that particular activity, or if there's something that a student might miss, there's an opportunity for the parents to go over that assignment and or activity so that the students can get the full benefit of that lesson. With that said, we understand the importance of being flexible. Much of our parents might be essential workers. The family time schedule might not allow for an activity for students to be present during a prescribed time. And so we have our teachers who are, some of the absolutely most creative and flexible special education teachers who are ready to first listen to what are the concerns of our parents and relatives, and to be able to tailor a program that will truly, meet the parents' needs, whether it's relative to related services and how those are provided, and or instructional supports that parents might need. The one thing I will say, I think having an open line of communication will ensure that all of these supports are afforded to our students, both when we are virtual, but in the event that we are able to go in person in the near future. What can you expect in terms of the day for our preschoolers? At a minimum, our teachers will have a 15-minute live opening group where the teacher is able to meet with the students, talk about what the day will look like, go over the activity for the day. There will be opportunities for teachers to read, introduce math concepts, go over science and or social skills activities with the class, but also to break out into small groups to meet the individual needs of or more fragile students. We will have weekly recorded lessons so that parents can go back, and let's say a student missed an activity or lesson. Parents will be able to go back and review those lessons, and or teachers can review those lessons with those students who might have missed a lesson or might need just a refresher. We also ask that our teachers continue to communicate with their parents. At a minimum, there should be a monthly parent communication conference with each parent so that parents can first know exactly where students are relative to the instruction being presented, but also to be able to share any concerns that they might have. I'm going to share what a typical preschool schedule might look like, given what I just outlined. And I'll compare that to what it would look like in the in-person model. So what we plan to do is to keep our schedule as close as possible to what it will look like when we are in person. So typically in the morning, the teachers would start off, once the students come in, they unpack, they would go over the morning routines. They would do what we call an opening session where students are introduced to a concept and go over just what are the expectations for that activity. Once students are informed as to what they will do for those activities and or instructional goal for that day, teachers will oftentimes break out into small groups where targeted skills are addressed. That will also be in the form of like read alouds or pre-recorded read alouds based on that content. So if it's an ELA lesson, it might be a story. If it's a social skills lesson, it might be an activity about interactive play for preschool or a problem and solving situation. And then the crux of the lesson is where students are given an opportunity to really demonstrate their knowledge. They are able to break off into groups where they can really work on the skills that were introduced. And that's where you have your hands-on activities, whether it's in small group or individual setting. There's also opportunities for outdoor play. So our teachers will be setting up activities. So students can have, truly breaks in between. I know what we've heard, and we've heard you loud and clear from many of our parents, is that much of our younger students, primarily students who are maybe in 3rd grade and below, having students sit in front of a screen for an extensive period of time is challenging. So with that said, we've heard you. We've made provisions to have the instructional lesson and the instructional day for that matter broken up into different phases so that students can first be introduced to a concept, practice that concept, break, come back, and demonstrate what they've learned through that instructional support. So the in-person model, I'll show you what that looks like, is very similar to what I just shared for the virtual option, where in the morning, staff members come in, they might meet students in the morning, they have some, some duties, whether it's taking students off the bus, taking them to the classrooms, then they'll go over, the morning meeting, and then they'll go into the core lesson. I do this to share that in planning, we wanted to ensure that as we go virtual and as we continue to deliver live, which is synchronous, and recorded lessons, that they're very similar to what students would experience in the in-person model. So a couple of questions about resources and what that would look like. We've made the conscious decision to explore a number of resources that we are able to use both online, but also to look at the resources that we already have in district and how we can ensure that students continue to be afforded those, instructional supports at the preschool level, using our curriculum, be it, tools of the minds, that are aligned to our gold standard, but our teachers are fully confident that they'll be able to pull and use those resources to support our preschoolers once we start in September. I know, especially in our MD preschool, having our paraprofessionals on board and fully, embedded in our classroom is important. And so our paraprofessionals have been trained with how to use the Google platform. They will be given district provided Chromebooks and also district provided email addresses so that they can be a resource in the classroom. Just going to go back to my screen really quickly. Okay. So I'm going to take you to the elementary school, which is a little bit different than preschool. When we went virtual at the end of March, much of our K through 12 students were pretty exposed to the online interface of Google Classroom, Zoom. And so for those students, it should be a little bit easier to navigate the platform. Nonetheless, I want you to be assured that the instructional model will be very similar to what it would typically look like had we started the school year in person. So I'll just outline for you what the lesson components will look like, what percentage will be devoted to social, emotional, pulse of where students are. We do encourage our teachers, first thing is to have a check-in to ensure that our students are ready and to really garner what are the needs of our students on a daily basis. During that time, we'll take attendance. There'll be an opening of the lesson for that day. The teacher will explain what students are expected to learn, but also model what those content, strategies, instructional supports will look like so that we can truly meet those specific skills that students will need in order to do well. During that time, about 60% of that instructional lesson will be devoted to students working, whether it's students working independently, where teachers are navigating breakout rooms and checking in with students who might be working in a small group with a paraprofessional or working directly with the teacher. I know Google and Zoom allows us to be able to first, meet as a whole group, but also have breakout sessions where, teachers can truly zoom in on those specific individual needs, and to ensure that our students are supported, and, they feel confident to share, whether it's something that they are not clear about or an assignment or task that students might need some, close, you know, teacher to student interaction in order to accomplish the task at hand. In addition to, students working through the concepts within each of our lessons, and typically at the elementary level, those lessons are about 40 to 60 minutes. So let's say this is for a language arts lesson. Within that lesson, you'll have all of these components. First, for a check-in, the opening, the work period, which will be synchronous, which means the teacher will be live during this time. The work period, because we understand that the teacher might need to work with some groups of students, the students who are not directly in front of the teacher at that time might be working on some skill-based activities and or some recorded lesson to go over those targeted skills. One of the most important component is to assess how well our students are engaging towards that particular task. We will have close-in or checkpoints, and that might take the form of exit tickets, Google check forms, or check-in to move our students forward. So moving forward to the middle school level, and those periods are typically about 55 for students in grades 5 through 6, or 85 for our 7th and 8th graders. The social emotional component will also be addressed. It'll be the check-in, the taking of attendance. Students will be asked to, we call this an APK, which is to check how well students are knowledgeable of the task at hand prior to the teacher delivering the instruction. Then there'll be an opening of the lesson. The teacher goes over the concepts. That'll take up about 20 minutes. All of those components will be live. So the teacher will be live for the duration of the lesson. The work period for middle school students will take the form of small group collaboration with other students, where the teacher is able to navigate and jump in and out of those groups to support those students, but also individual conference. We know how important that is to ensure that some of our students who oftentimes might not, speak up, that the teacher can truly gauge how well, how much support that student will need during that time by checking in and conferencing with those students individually. And also the assessment component. We know our students will make progress, but we want to be able to measure just how well they're progressing to that task by, whether it's a show of hand or an exit ticket or a Google form that students will submit in order to show how well they are progressing to the identified lesson objective. Now for high school students, our programming at the high school level will be somewhat similar, but also different to the elementary and middle level. Our high school students, the instructional period for the most part will be somewhere about 70 minutes per course. And that will take the form of synchronous instruction with opportunities for students to review lesson component using asynchronous method. The instructional day will start similarly. There'll be a check-in. The difference with the high school level is that for every period, students are asked to check in, so attendance will be taken. We do ask if students are going to be out for whatever reason, that you do communicate this with the classroom teacher so that the teacher can get that student caught up with any lesson and or resources that is needed. The lesson components will also include the opening, which include the explanation of the content. The teacher will model what students are expected to do. prior to having the students break off where they can really show and demonstrate knowledge in the work period. At the high school level, students will be able to reach out to their teachers during the office hours. Teachers are asked to communicate these hours to students. So let's say I have a 10th grader who's having some challenges doing geometry, and Miss Miranda has a scheduled office hour from 2:30 to 3 o'clock. That information will be shared with students so that, after the lesson has been taught, students can reach out to Miss Miranda or any other teacher to get any additional supports during that time. Within each of our instructional levels and sessions, there are opportunities for closing and really assessing how students have progress to the targeted objective for that lesson. And those will these are just some example, take forms of whether it's a quick assessment, a checkout, exit ticket, or just having students, articulate their understanding of that particular lesson. We do have some proposed schedules. These schedules will also be shared with you at the building level. And so I think we've gone over just what that would look like at the preschool. I'll just hover over the middle school level so you could take a look at what that could look like for your student, the bell schedule. So you'll see that the instructional day is going to be identical to what it would be relative to the in-person model. The periods will start typically at about 8:30, similar to the way it would in person, and it goes through 3 o'clock for students who are in grades 5 through 6, and then 3:14 for students who are in 7 through 8. So I know for all of us, one of the best ways to garner how students are progressing is to look at those IEP goals and to communicate both with the parents and with the team members how those goals are being addressed, but most importantly, how are students making progress to those identified goals. And so we are going to continue to use the IEP goals as a benchmark to garner, first, how to meet the unique needs of our students, but also to gauge how well they're making progress towards district benchmarks and also the short-term and long-term objectives that have been identified for those particular students. Teachers will communicate those progress via IEP Direct. They will go in quarterly. They will add whether students have mastered, making progress towards those goals, or if there's insufficient progress and there's a need to reconsider or amend those IEP goals. That information will be shared with you through the classroom teachers on a quarterly basis. And this outlines just when you can expect to see those progress reports, in addition to the grade level report cards. The grade level report cards for high school, those are sent out. The very first marking period will be sent out on November 20th. And the IEP goals, which are housed in IEP Direct, will also be sent out on the same day. And likewise, for the second marking period, February 5th, those will be sent out via email to parents by the teacher and or related service provider if that student is a speech-only student. And the elementary schedule is quite similar. Now, I think we are moving close to our timeline, so I'm going to have Dr. Moore Tewitt, who is our Child Study Team Coordinator, just share how we will continue to afford our students related services that are closely aligned to those that are listed in their IEPs.
Well, good evening. Thank you, Shelly Ann. I know I'm going to move this along quickly so you have time for your questions. I've been scrolling through and hopefully some of this will answer some of those questions. Related service, when we say that, most of you know it's speech and language therapy, counseling, physical therapy, occupational therapy. That's usually what we're referring to. And it follows the mandate in the IEP, group and individual. For group services, it's often push-in. In other words, it'll be in the class. The teacher and the service provider, let's say it's speech, work together. They know when it's going to be. It's posted in the Google Classroom for that teacher as well as the service provider. So you have an idea of when it's going to be. For example, and I used it here with Shelly Ann, Mrs. Smith's language arts class, first period Monday morning, 30 minutes of push-in with the speech language therapist. The same thing will be true on any sort of OT or PT that's done as a push-in. Individual services, so individual therapies, whether it's speech, counseling, OT or PT, that will be arranged in conjunction with the parent and the therapist. In other words, when is it a convenient time during the school day that you agree that the student can have these services? A letter should be going out, an email, so please make sure your emails are up to date because the service providers will be contacting you via email at the beginning of, I would say by September 8th, to find out when it works for you if it's individual services. The service providers have been in touch with the teachers. They've met during the last 2 weeks since we found out that we were going all virtual. They had been in contact during the summer anyway because we were going to do a hybrid plan. So they've been coordinating. They are working diligently to make sure services are provided in the best fashion possible. You know, we would prefer in person, but we know where we are. The reason why, too, one of the good things is they're trying to mimic the schedule as it will be when we go back to in-person in November. So it's an easier transition. It's a smoother transition for everybody. In regards to any sort of platforms or the paras will be working with the students as well, and the teachers and the service providers. Social skills is also a counseling area that will be included. Sometimes that's done as a push-in and well in the class. There'll be group breakouts at times. It all depends on how it's coordinated with the teacher, the service provider, and you as the parent are involved in this process as well. I'm kind of rushing through this because I want to give you some time. Everything will be virtual for the time being. It will be live in virtual, but there will be things that also will be offered. I know when I spoke to several of the speech therapists today, some of the things they were talking about is they put work up that can be done to supplement what's done during the day or done during the school week, in addition to the live in-person services that are rendered. And also, one of the things I know I saw asked, when will services start? Usually we begin services 2 weeks into the school year. It gives everybody time to get used to everybody. The service providers can work with the students and teachers, set up the schedule, get everything running. Also, you know, they've been working on different platforms, trying to figure a few things out. I don't know if you have any questions about testing. I'll just real quick touch on that. The speech, socials, OT and PT are all done virtually for any assessments at this time. If you're doing any educational assessments such as an LDTC or a psych, those would have to be handled in person and they'd be done on a case-by-case basis. There are guidelines for that we used over the summer. The more information can be forthcoming if you want it. Just let me know and I will get it to you. But I did want to give time to get to your questions. So I'm going to wrap it up, but please email me anything that I didn't hit on that you're unsure of or that we don't get to right now. please get in touch and we will get back to you.
All right, at this point, I can go to the screen. This is Mr. Giannetti, and I'll read the questions. Shelly Ann, Ms. Tewitt, Dr. Tewitt, you can, answer if you got the correct answer, but I think we did answer a lot of the questions already. So we can get right to that. What will the schedule be for special education classes? The kids with specials, do they have virtual therapies to start in September? That was answered. The schedules that we presented today, everything will be posted on the website. Just give us like a day or two and we'll have even this recorded meeting up there, okay? So we did address both those issues in that question. Then we had, will social behavioral therapy for students who have difficulty with play or playing with others be provided virtually? As Dr. Tewitt said, at this point, everything is provided virtually. I don't know if she would have anything to add to that, if there was a special case, but I got to believe that everything, is virtual, just as Dr. Tewitt mentioned.
Yeah, Mr. Giannetti, you are correct. Everything is virtual, and if there is any sort of social emotional, if there's any sort of social skills, or if there's a behavior plan, that will all be implemented live.
Okay. The next question was, how will drop-in care work with a student who needs the structure of a classroom setting and cannot learn unless they are being supported at all times? Both parents working, one being a healthcare worker. Dr. Tewitt, Ms. Miranda.
Hi, everyone. So my understanding is that for students and or families who will require the services of the drop-in center, that you're asked to share that information first, reach out to your case manager, but also we'll be able to coordinate that through the building administration and then through the district level so that, communication can be shared with families in terms of what are the steps to ensure that those services are provided. So first, I would encourage you to reach out to the case manager so that he or she can point you in the right directions to get those services in place.
Great. Thanks, Ms. Miranda. Next question. If you miss a class, will we have the opportunity to get the video and instruction for the day? Will the teacher forward that information to the student? As was said before, everything will be recorded if you did miss a day. Certainly, keep that open communication with the parent. Maybe you might, if you're going to miss a class, you can work things out. But even in the case where it's like an emergency, you miss a class, they will have available to them that lesson that they missed for that day and, any needed support. So you have the hours when the teachers are working, you always have email. So keep the communication tight with your teachers, okay? Because things will happen on a normal, schedule, and we know things are virtual. So just keep that open line of communication from here on out, forever.
We have
will any therapies be in person? Well, we already covered that one. Until something changes, everything will be virtual. Next question. During the ESY program, we offer TeachTown for social skills perspective. My child is in an inclusive classroom at Hawthorne, and we would like to know if this will be offered to the students. Previously, our child was in a social skills group. Ms. Miranda?
So yes, we've gotten some really positive feedback relative to using TeachTown as a way to, engage our students in those social skills activities and social emotional support. So yes, we've reached out to use the social skills TeachTown program, both for students who are in the MD, LOD, and for a number of our students who might be in a resource room, but could really use the supports of a TeachTown program. So to answer that question, the answer is yes. I think I know the parent, and we'll work that out on a case-by-case basis.
Next question. How will a pre-K student with special needs be cared for in drop sessions if they are recommended 1 hour of screen time? I don't know if 1 hour screen time is still the schedule. I know there was a revamp of the schedule, which we would include that revamped schedule. But if someone could speak to that, if that's changed from 1 hour screen time to a reduced time.
So yes, I know some of these questions will also be addressed during the preschool virtual town hall in terms of what the specific schedule will look like, how that will be broken out in terms of what portion will be recorded, what portion will be live, and how students will be able to have access to those lessons. So I think stay tuned. I think you'll get a better sense of what that looks like at the preschool level once you get the information from the preschool team.
Okay. Next question. Opportunities where teachers can facilitate social conversation and peer-to-peer interaction and get to know the children on a deeper level, especially in light of the new virtual environment. I think that was driven home. Like we're going to make that, each teacher is going to make that effort to the best of his or her ability, especially the way it's, in the schedule. We saw PK schedule, we saw the other schedules, so that we know that is important. And, that's something that's going to be focused on. I don't know if anybody else had anything that mentioned to that, but that was my understanding. My child gets taken out of class and work with me twice a day. I'm not sure what that person was asking right there. I'll tell you what, whoever asked that question, you might want to just contact the office, okay? Either Miss Miranda, Miss Sorella Levine, okay, myself. You can send that, and we'll get that answered for you. But it's difficult to understand what we're really getting at there. How will the DOE offer daycare work? Will students be able to join their meets? Shelly-Ann?
So I do know that after speaking with both the supervisor for preschool and conversation with the technology department, that all of our students, including preschool students, have been given district IDs, which means that they will be able to log on to Google Classrooms, Zern, Zoom, using an access code that will be shared with family members so that they can assist students as they log on.
All right. And I know we have about like 5 minutes left here.
We have about 2 minutes left, Mrs. Janetti. So whatever questions are not answered tonight, we will make sure we answer them. So we have about 2 minutes left. We have to get ready for the next parent meeting, which is at 7:30. It needs time to set up.
Okay, so before we do that, so here's my promise to everybody on the call. We will definitely get these questions answered, okay? We'll have a document that'll then be posted with the recording of this town hall meeting. And thank you so much, everybody for coming to be a part of it. And like I said, communication is always the most important thing. So please never stop that, okay, with us, because we're really trying to meet the needs of everybody. And it's not easy, but we're working hard to do that for you. Okay,
We have time to answer a few more questions.
All right, let's see. Paraprofessionals, how are paraprofessionals be working, Shelly-Ann, with everybody? Because I know there was a few questions about paras.
So absolutely. So it's funny, we just had a meeting this morning just to first share best practices in terms of utilizing paraprofessionals as we go virtual, but also to be able to retool and support our paraprofessionals. They will be given training on first using the platforms. They'll be given district Chromebooks, district email addresses, and working really closely the very first 4 days of school with the teachers on how to, go into breakout groups, how to identify student needs, and how to really to continue to afford students those instructional supports that students might not be able to have in a whole group setting.
Okay, thanks, Shel. All right. So some of the questions that were, asked have been answered already. Let's see if we got one more here. All right, so we'll do one more. Then we'll wrap it up. All right, and then, like I said, we'll answer every question that's been posted, and we'll put it up. How do you intend to provide IEP services for students who are unable to participate in online classes and therapy sessions?
So if there's an issue with students who, for whatever reason, are unable to participate in the online session, I do ask that you coordinate first with a child study team member, and so that we can set up a meeting to figure out if we can't have students log in virtual, what are the other options, whether it be resources or other supports that we will be able to afford the parent and students that we might not be able to do so virtually. So I would say this will have to be on a case-by-case basis. We understand that some families, because of the unique needs or situation in that family, going online might not be an option. But nonetheless, we are going to meet the needs of each of our students, and we ask that you coordinate with the case manager and the team. Collectively, we'll figure out the best plan to meet those students' needs.
Before we stop the meeting, I just want to say thank you to every single parent who joined tonight. I think it was very thorough and in-depth, and I just want to say a special thank you to Shelly Ann Miranda, for Dr. Tewitt, to Emilio Giannetti for doing such a fine job, Ms. Victoria Fisher, Board Trustee, and Gerald Reiner, Board Trustee. Thank you for joining us tonight. Thank you and have a good night, everyone.
Thank you.